All right, picking up from where we left off yesterday, 3, 3, 3. Ports, connectors, and cables. Great news, though. We've seen all of this before, right, in previous lessons. So let's go over some legacy ports by clicking that right arrow there. Cereal, not what you had for breakfast, your Frosted Flakes. What are we talking about with a serial cable? The data is right running in serial. There's a legacy connection. Here we can see a DB9 in the bottom left-hand corner here for this male connector. Here you have a DB25 up there. So these are serial connections. Next we have parallel, right? Or that was the one up above. That's a DB25. Your connections are going to run in parallel. Multiple data bits, right, can run in parallel alongside each other, right? Can do multiple bits at the same time. This is common for what device? Printers. All right, next. This is a gaming port, 15 pin. Is this what you use to play on your PS5, Xbox One? But it's a gaming port. Why wouldn't you use it for gaming? It's legacy, right? What does legacy mean? It's old. Well, I don't know if I like that. Outdated. I don't know. It's still great, but there's something better. Whatever you want to say. All right, next. Maybe legacy is the best term. PS2. Oh, more Sony stuff? What's a PS2?
For the keyboard and the mouse.
Keyboard and mouse. Not hot swappable. That's the big thing, right? What does that mean? Not hot swappable. Can't be powered on and plug it in, right? That's going to be very relevant to you as an ITE because fleet returnees, we've seen PS2 in the fleet, right? Probably. Some of us maybe. Well, you might, right, depending on where you're at. And users are going to say, oh, my keyboard and mouse doesn't work. And you know as an IT, reboot your computer, right? It might not be hot swappable. Easy day? Next, we have audio ports for your stereo systems, your 3.5 millimeter jacks. You can make your music, your Miles Davis. All right, so those are legacy ports. Any questions? We've seen all those before, I believe. Okay, video and graphic ports. Next, we have VGA. This is an analog port. This is an old graphics port or for your monitor. We still will use this. This is a DB or DE15 connector, and you've got those screws that'll connect that. We've probably seen this one before. Absolutely. All right, next we have DVI, which stands for Digital Visual Interface. And we learned earlier about the different DVIs, like DVI-A is for analog, DVI-D for digital, and I for
Integrated, which is both.
Integrated, right? Both analog, digital, kind of. We talked about single channel and dual channel. Dual channel for the higher bandwidth. We see that grounding pin on the right over here. This is for your video as well. Easy day. Next, we have HDMI, designed specifically for high-definition televisions, which at the time was 720. HD is now considered 1080. There's different versions of these, HDMI 2, 2.1, etc., that offer different speeds, right, for that data to go through. There's also a mini HDMI. Next, we have DisplayPort. And this is that notched out rectangle. There's also a mini DisplayPort. There's different versions of these that offer increased bandwidth and speed. This originally was used, or primarily used with Apple when for their displays. Okay, moving on. Questions, comments, concerns? USB. Let's learn about USB because we've just described basic USB now. We're going to learn about the very different types of USB, starting with USB type A. That's the typical one that we've seen, right? We would just call this a USB cable, right? Yeah. So this is technically, right, a USB type A. And there's different versions of this as well that offer different speeds. There's version 1 or 1.1, 2, and 3. Does anyone know a key characteristic difference for USB A type 3? It has to deal with the color. Instead of being a white bar there, not black, it's going to be blue. So let's hit the escape key. Let's pull up a Google image of USB type A 3.0. Just go to a different tab. Type USB 3.0. Enter. Go to images. And here you can see, right, that blue right there, that indicates to us that it's USB Type A, but what version? 3.0, right? And it'll be on your port as well. Everyone see that? All right, now we can go back to our slides. What does that mean? Well, it's got increased bandwidth or speed capabilities. So it's going to be faster. Easy day? Awesome. So now we know, right, as ITs, oh, you know, this is called a USB Type A. That's right. Next we have, what comes after A? You'd think so, right? But this is mini USB. Who's seen this before? We've probably seen this before. What do you use this for? Cameras, right? Digital cameras commonly use this. Was this used on some controllers too?
Yes.
PlayStation controller. So this is technically called a mini USB. Not to be confused with a micro USB, which is, I believe, the next one. There it is, micro USB. What's the name on the streets for this cable, though? Android charger, right? But us, as professional ITs, we don't use that street lingo. We would call this what type of cable? Micro USB. Right? So not an Android charger. It commonly charged Android devices, as well as a bunch of other devices. But this was a type of USB cable specifically called micro USB. Not to be confused with, what was the one we just talked about for cameras? Mini USB, right? This is micro USB. So an Android charger is a micro USB. Who, yeah? We're not done yet. More USBs include Type B. Who's seen this one before? What is this used for? Printers, right? So USB Type B is commonly used for various external peripherals, usually printers, right? B, bravo, printer, P, papa. That's how I kind of remember it, right? B and P kind of sound the same.
Tomato, tomato.
Tomato, tomato, right? B is for printers. So we should be able to look at a picture of these, identify them, and know which type of USB they are. Next we have USB Type C, based off of the Lightning connector. What's special about this one? Everybody uses it. Apple helped develop it, right? But it is an open standard. And it is it keyed? No, right? So you in the dark, right? You can plug it in, right? It doesn't matter which way you orient it because it's not keyed. And there are different versions of this that offer different speeds as well. I guess not Lightning, but Thunderbolt, what is built off of. Next, Lightning cable. What was this for? Apple. Very good. This was not keyed as well, right? But this has been replaced with what? USB Type C, and that's because of primarily regulations in the EU, right, that mandate certain things, right, and the markets have changed due to that. So we've moved more towards a standardization of cables, so don't know how much more cables are going to change due to regulations. Who, yeah? Anyone need more time to write? Other things we should know already, storage. What type of data cable do we use for storage internally? SATA data. How many pins? 7. How many for power? 15. So if we scroll down, we can see that there. Not in his room? Okay. We'll fill LaBranch in on what he missed. Good to go? All right. So here we see SATA. And where is that SATA cable connected to? What device? The motherboard. We saw this yesterday in the lab, right? Now some of us, right, we didn't know quite where to go. Do we plug a storage into a storage? But remember what our computer is. Everything's connected to the motherboard, right? The RAM's connected to the motherboard. The CPU's connected to the motherboard. The hard drives connected to power, but also they need to connect to the motherboard, right? So then they can get to the CPU, etc., right? So everything's got to be connected to the motherboard somehow. To your spine, right? Just like you, everything is connected to your backbone in some way. Next we have, what's this? That's a SATA cable, right? We've seen these yesterday. Does anyone know if that's a power or data cable?
Looks like I would say data.
That's going to be a data cable, which is how many pins?
7.
7. Next, we have, there we go, right? You can see a hard disk drive. There's both SATA data and power. Power's on the left. All right, next. eSATA. What's the E for? Not express. External, right? Which means outside of the computer, right? So you can use an external storage device and connect it with that SATA connection if you want to use that instead of Thunderbolt or USB-C, etc. Next, we have an eSATA adapter card. If you've got an external hard drive that uses SATA, but your computer doesn't have any eSATA ports, well, we can take this eSATA adapter card and put it into an expansion slot. And we learned about the different types of expansion slots: PCI, PCIe, PCIX, etc., right? Questions? All right, moving on. Twisted pair. So it'll probably be sometime this week or next week you're going to actually make your own twisted pair cables or Ethernet cables that you'll be able to take home with you. We'll click next. So we're going to really deep dive into that chapter. Who remembers what that connector on the end is called? RJ45. What do phones use? RJ11. Anyone know what the RJ stands for? Registered jack. Now we're going to learn when we make these cables that those wires, we see that they're twisted. They're twisted pair because there's 4 pairs that are twisted together. And then those pairs are twisted again. Does anyone remember what that is to reduce? Interference, a type of interference called crosstalk. Just like with noise cancellation headphones, they have microphones that listen to the frequency. They invert it or flip it 180 and put that signal in and it cancels each other out. Same thing is going on here. So it's the cables are twisted or the pairs are twisted to help reduce crosstalk. So those connectors on the end are called RJ45. Next we have, so we'll learn later that these are all twisted pair. You can have it be unshielded or you could have it be shielded. Unshielded, there's no shield to protect it against anything. It's still twisted to help reduce what? Crosstalk. But the shielded twisted pair has a aluminum shield or a foil shield on the inside, and that helps reduce EMI, which stands for electromagnetic interference, and RFI, which is radio frequency interference, which we'll talk again about more later. Next we have, that's RJ11. What's that for? Phones. Easy day? All right. Continuing down, coax, which is short for coaxial. What do we use this for? Cable. What is cable? TV, right? If you want to watch TV, the only way to do it is to connect your television with a coaxial cable, right? Is that how you watch TV? No, how do you watch TV? You stream, right, using the internet. So this is, you'd pay a cable provider just like you'd pay an internet service provider. That physical infrastructure, that copper would run to your house, and you'd have that coaxial cable, and they would send that signal to your house so you could watch various channels. And those channels would be sent on different frequencies within that coaxial cable. Yeah, you get internet that way too. And once we get into chapter 5, we'll learn about the history about that and how the technology evolved to be able to provide more for users. Dial-up. Good? Let's look at the connectors on coaxial, because there are different ones. But this is the inside of a coaxial. You have the metal conductor, copper. Then you've got a shield or braided shield to help protect against interference as well as thicken the cable. These cables aren't like Ethernet cables where they easily move. These are thick cables, can be difficult to install because of that. And you've got an outer plastic jacket to help protect against the elements. Next, This is an example of one of the connectors. This is an RG6. Now this is mentioning the heavy gauge. Does anyone know what the gauge is referring to? The circumference, or you can think of it as the thickness, I guess, of that copper, right? The gauge. The bigger the number, the smaller it's going to be. They have different thicknesses. So an RG6 connector commonly uses what's called an F-type connector, which is right here, which is very commonly used for cable. This is what you'd use to screw in to your TV so you could watch I Love Lucy, so you could watch Nick at Night, The Office, Squid Games. Next, another connector this is an RG59. Conveniently does not display what the connector looks like. However, it's commonly used as a BNC connector that we'll see next, but you can use this for security cameras, etc., for power and for data. Next, BNC. Here's our BNC connector, very common. It's connected using a quarter turn to connect to it. And this could support digital as well as analog. Next, or that's it. Questions on coaxial. All right, moving on. SCSI and IDE cables. So SCSI, S-C-S-I, stands for Small Computer Systems Interface. So we can see that. This is an older bus-type technology where you could daisy chain them together. Now, we haven't used the term daisy chain yet. But see how we've got this extension cord back here? That long 50-foot extension cord? Well, imagine we didn't have that, and I just had like a 5-foot extension cord, a 5-foot extension cord, and a 5-foot and we just plugged them together. That's called daisy chaining. Are there any advantages to daisy chaining?
If you wanted, you could add more devices if you had splitters.
You can add more devices with splitters. It increases the length. Any disadvantages? The signal goes down, single point of failure. Electricity can't go that far in each connector, right? You're going to lose something, right? So daisy chaining is not a good practice, especially with power. You definitely don't want to take like a power strip, plug that into a wall, plug another power strip into it, another power strip into it. You're most likely going to have a fire and have a really bad day. IDE, Integrated Drive Electronics. This is another cable which we've seen before. This is a ribbon cable that we use internally inside of computers to connect to the motherboard. Hoo-yeah? All right, next we have, talking about these more, this is an external SCSI cable, right? You can use these not just inside your computer, but outside of your computer. Has multiple rows. They've got a bar in the middle that holds all those contact pins to have a good connector. And you've got, to attach this, you've got these brackets on the side to hold it into place. Not used really anymore. Next. Here we see an internal SCSI ribbon cable. We've seen those. Next we have an internal IDE ribbon cable. This one has 40 pins. And this, right, has one connector on one side and then two connectors here. Kind of like how we had for our SATA for power, right? One off the power supply unit, and then you had one SATA for the first hard drive and then another for the other hard drive. So here you could attach a device to the motherboard and then connect up to 2 drives, just like we've seen for SATA.
For some reason, whoever designs the case would make it so that when you had one of these, it would be a pain in the butt to get both of them connected at the same time.
Exactly. It'd give you like so much extra, etc. And we saw now how easy it is with our SATA connectors, right? That it had those two, and it lined up perfectly where that other drive was going to be. Next. Let's see what we know.
Oh boy.
3 external connections of a computer. USB,
Network.
DVI, and network. Okay? That's right. Very good. What a great way to start the morning.
Coffee break.
All right, ready for monitors? 3, 3, 4. We watched that video on the slow-mo guys on how a TV works. A pixel stands for picture element. And a pixel is made up of 3 subpixels, which are which colors?
Red, blue, green.
Red, green, and blue. And we learned with all of them are on, what color would that be? White, right? So let's learn some more terms. Screen size. The size of your screen is measured diagonally, right? From one corner to the other corner. And it's measured in inches. Your resolution. So for example, 1920 by 1280. That's going to be the width by the height, right? So how wide it is, that number of pixels, by how tall it is. Does that make sense to everyone? Awesome. So that is our resolution. Now, we could get that down to an aspect ratio. So let's say we have 1920 by 1280. Let's find our highest or lowest common denominator for these to get our aspect ratio. Basically, for every pixel here, how many do we have here? What would our aspect ratio be here? 1920. Use our calculators if we want. Is it 4:3? Is it 16:9? 16:9. Right? So that means for every 16 pixels, we have horizontally, we have 9 vertically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you have your resolution, right, which is actually how many pixels do you physically have horizontally and vertically. But because these can vary so much, and you've got different formats, you want to get that down to an aspect ratio. So it can be the same, right? 16 by 9. Another common one is 4 by 3. Right, you kind of see, right? This one is 4:3 is more square. 16:9 is more horizontal or landscape. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, so we talked about resolution, native resolution. In your settings, that's going to be the recommended solution. That's doing actually what that monitor can do. You would narrow this down to a smaller resolution. That way you can use all of the pixels available to you. And that's where you get the setting native mode, which matches, right, whatever that native resolution is in the software, right? So it's actually using all those pixels. And there's different ways we can connect to our monitors. We've been learning about them since day one. Different cables you can connect to a monitor. What are some examples?
VGA.
HDMI, mini HDMI, DisplayPort, mini DisplayPort, DVI,
VGA.
VGA, all of those, right? Even USB-C. Easy day? Questions? Mine too.
To get the 16.9, what was the calculation that you used?
Lowest common denominator. So, for every 16 pixels here, there's 9 here. So, 16 times y, 9 times z, or however you want to do the formula, would equal 1920. This would equal 1280. Going down, if you open up in the search bar in a Windows machine and you type display, it'll bring up your display settings. You can do things like connect to external monitors, like we're doing here. You could extend, you could duplicate. So you can extend your desktop, so instead of having one screen, you could have 2, or etc. Here we have the resolution. What does that recommended mean next to that resolution? That'd be the native resolution, right? That's for native mode. Notice how that's also the highest resolution. Easy day? You can also scale, right? So you can make the screen larger, the text larger, etc. You can change the orientation. So if you want to put your screen vertically, right? I don't want to mess up your cables. You could do that, right? But you don't want to have to go look at it like this. You could flip your screen so you can see it vertically. Easy day? All right, moving on. Terms. Pixel stands for picture element. It makes up 3 subpixels, which are RGB, red, green, blue. Next, we have what's called dot pitch. So if I've got a pixel here, which is, oh, you know what? I got red, green, and blue right here. So dot pitch is the distance between pixels. So here I have a pixel here and a pixel here. The dot pitch is that distance between the two. Here's a pixel. Here's another pixel. The dot pitch is the distance between the two. Do we think a smaller or larger dot pitch is going to give us a better image quality? Smaller, right? They're closer together. So it's going to be a better overall image quality. Easy day? We'll go to brightness. So light is measured in lumens. There's tools where you can measure the brightness of the lumens off of things. Same for monitors, displays, etc. The brightness is measured in the luminance, or how many lumens are given off. It's measured in, so if you have a brighter room, you want it to give off more lumens. If it's darker, then it can produce less lumens. Questions? Contrast ratio. That is the difference between how white and how black a monitor can get. So contrast ratio of 1,000 to 1 is better or worse, do you think, to 4,500 to 1? Worse, right? So you want that larger difference, right? Because this is, the widest and the darkest point, right? If it's a larger scale, you're going to have a bigger dynamic range between the darkest spots on the screen and the brightest. Good? Aspect ratio. Who remembers what aspect ratio is? That horizontal to vertical viewing angle for a monitor. It's that aspect ratio. So for every 4 pixels, there's 3 vertically. So if I had 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, how many pixels would I have vertically? For a 4x3? 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For every 4, there's 3. So what we did was we took 4 by 3 here. We multiplied that by 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 3 is 9, right? We can expand that out and we get various aspect ratios or pixels. Stretching? Refresh rate. So we saw in that video that images or videos, they're really just pictures, right? And what we see is just that picture being a new picture multiple times a second. So refresh rates are measured in hertz, or how many times per second it can put a new image on the screen. Easy day? All right, response time. Response time is how long it takes a pixel to change its properties. The color, the brightness. The faster the response time, the smoother that image is going to look. Frames per second. So we have the refresh rate measured in hertz. How often that the screen can be refreshed. But the response time, the frames per second, that's actually how many images per second will be displayed on the screen. FPS, frames per second. A lot of these terms we've probably heard before. Maybe it's good to put a definition behind the term. Especially as an IT, you want to be able to know what these terms mean and not just speak out of your butt, right? Or talk about things you don't know. Like now, right, we know we're not going to call Android chargers. We'd call it a micro USB. A mini USB is for digital cameras. What are printers used for? Or what do we use for printers? USB Type B. And that typical USB cable? Type A. And if it's USB 3.0, what color is it? Blue. All right, frames per second, which we talked about. And interlaced versus non-interlaced. So think back to that slow-mo guys video we watched. Go ahead and click on that. Remember how it started from the top to the bottom and it drew the lines like that? Remember that? And he did Mario's mustache, right? But it started top to bottom, left to right, was how it drew the lines. When we're talking about interlaced and non-interlaced, it's talking about which lines it's going to scan. Interlaced will scan the screen twice. The first scan does the odd lines, every other line. Then the second scan, it's going to do the even lines, every other. Non-interlaced is what we saw in the video, right, with that cathode ray tube or CRT monitor, where it just started top to bottom, left to right. It just scans it once. Top to bottom, boom. But interlaced will do every other line, then come back and do every other line again for each image. Does that difference make sense to everyone? Questions on anything term related to monitors, displays? Let's learn about different display standards. 3343. Starting with CGA. This stands for Color Graphics Adapter. This is brand new. It just came out in 1981. Wow. That's not new. That's what? 45 years old? Whew. Legacy, right? Because the resolution is 320 by 200. Would you watch anything these days with that resolution? Probably not. Maybe we would. The aspect ratio here is 16 horizontal for 10 vertical. This was introduced by the IBM company in 1981. This is now considered obsolete, IE, aka legacy. Probably not even considered that because nobody is using this. Next we have VGA, Video Graphics Array. This came out 6 years later in 1987. This is still considered legacy. Resolution was 640 horizontal by 480 vertical, or an aspect ratio of 4:3. What came after that was SVGA, which stands for... Someone saying super? It is Super Video Graphics Array. Came out a few years later in 1989. Resolution 800 by 600, or a 4:3 aspect ratio. VGA is still used. We've mentioned VGA cables a lot, and we've seen them. HD, high definition. 1280 horizontal by 720 vertical, or a 16:9 aspect ratio. HD is short for high definition. It's also known as 720p. Versus what you probably think of as HD is called FHD, or full HD. So we click on that, that's actually not 720, that's our 1080p, or pixels. That's 1920 by 1080 now, not 720. 1920 by 1080, and that's a 16:9 aspect ratio. So full HD, FHD, 1080p. This is going to be good for your typical user. QHD, quad high definition. 2560 by 1440, another 16:9 aspect ratio. This is 1440p, so this would be good for high-end game users. And we have UHD, ultra high definition. 3840 by 2160, 16:9 aspect ratio, also known as 4K. Took kind of a liberty here, right, for fancy things, 4K, because it's almost 4,000 pixels horizontally. Stand up if we're falling asleep. Good? Any questions on these? So when you go shopping for a TV, you've probably seen, there's all these markings, these labels, right? All these letters. I don't know what it means, but it sounds fancy, right? Well, now we know they're saying these things because it meets those specifications. Yeah.
So I see the aspect ratio is just 16:9.
Mm-hmm.
Are they kind of just like trying to double it? Or just like double in quality, I guess?
16. So that means for every 16 pixels horizontally, there's 9 vertically. So if you took, what's 3840 divided by 16? Come on, pull up a calculator. So 3840 divided by 16. What is it? 240. So 240, let's remember that. What is 2160 divided by 9? $37? It's 240 again, right? It's the same. Good? Make sense? Okay. Questions, comments? Moving on. We're going to learn about the different displays. But first, multiple monitors. So if you've got multiple displays, you can connect them. You can have one display be for one thing, another for another. You can have a large desktop. You can have one full screen application on one, another full screen application on the other. It's very useful. And we would go into our display settings to do this. Are we going too fast? No? Okay. Moving on. Here's our display settings. So here you can hit identify, and in the lower right-hand corner, it'll number the screen so you know which one you're doing. And then you could orient it different ways. If you want, when your mouse goes from left to right, it goes to a different monitor, it will. If you put these on top of each other, now you got to move your mouse to the top of the screen, and then it'll go on to the other screen, however you want to orient them. You can change your brightness, and it's even got a night light so you don't get scared at night. No, that's not what that's for, right? It lowers the blue light on your screen. Scrolling down. Again, we have our recommended setting. What is that? The native resolution or native mode. We can change the orientation from landscape to portrait, it would call it, to put it in a vertical setting. Next. What's up? Oh, yeah, I don't bring those up because I don't want students doing that. All right, let's check our understanding for monitor terminology. What is the distance between picture elements or pixels on the screen? Dot pitch. What's measured diagonally from top to bottom in inches? Screen size. 4 to 3 is older, while 16 to 9 is newer. Aspect ratio. In Windows 10, this is identified using the keyword recommended. Native resolution or native mode. 4,500 to 1 displays brighter whites and darker blacks. Then 1,000 to 1 is our contrast ratio. What is an example of 1920 horizontal pixels by 1080 vertical pixels? More of these dots mean the monitor can display more detail. Pixel, which is short for picture element, which consists of 3 subpixels in the RGB, red, green, blue. We'll click submit. Very good. Who ya? All right, we'll exit, and we will take a quick break before we move on to the next section.